I'm back and I'm talking about shit I want to do and I'm going to do, and that this podcast is going to help enable me to do. So what did I say? The whole archery thing, the whole shooting a pig, butchering it and all that jazz, getting chickens, having a coop for eggs at first and possibly for meat, you know, in time. Fighting again. Like, it's easy for me to just rhyme off, oh, I'm going to fight again, lads, isn't that great? But I mean, realistically, when you fucking think about it, for a start, I've probably about 20 pounds of fat to lose before I could even compete. And that's another journey that I'd love to bring you guys on. Okay, and it's a great way for me. I mean, if I commit to doing it and I start taking fucking videos of myself and pulling lumps of fat around my side and saying, right, this is week 1, lads, I'm on X diet and I'm on X plan, blah, blah, blah. You know, watch my progression over the coming weeks. That's a guarantee that I'm going to fucking do it. Because I've said to myself, oh yeah, I'm going to get fit and lose weight or whatever else. And it's never really happened. The only time it ever happened is when I actually was fighting. And I had to get down to a certain weight at a certain date and all that jazz. So you had to do it. Now this is a way of actually almost artificially creating the circumstances for success. That's actually a cool way of looking at it. This podcast gives me the opportunity to artificially create the circumstances for success. Now, in relation to fighting again, am I going to fight in what I fought in before? What I fought in before was an amateur fight promotion called Man of War. Now, shout out to Stephen Moriarty. Fucking great show, great lad, and fucking pillar of the community as far as I'm concerned. A real fucking trailblazer. The man set up his own little UFC in Ireland, and fair fucking play to him for it. I mean, that shit takes fucking balls and knowledge and contacts and time and effort and blood, sweat and fucking tears. And he gave me the opportunity to, number 1, make my debut, and number 2, fight again on a proper stage, in a proper octagon, in front of a proper crowd that had paid for the fucking privilege to be there. But that was then and this is now. I'm fucking 36. I'm a fucking successful businessman with a family and kids. I'm not going to want to fight on a show like that this time round. This time round it's going to be fucking different, especially with fucking COVID. This time round it's going to be way better. Think of this. Now this is me letting the brain wander a little, but bear with me, okay? I'm speaking freely because I know that anybody listening to this is episode what, 33. If you're listening to episode 33, odds are you haven't just dipped into it, and if you have, fair play to you, but odds are you've been here, you've been part of the journey, so I feel okay talking freely, so to speak, okay, which is very important. I've said it before, be careful who you fucking share your hopes, dreams and aspirations with, because the last thing that you fucking need is to find the bravery to say something out loud and for it only to be fucking shot down. So I feel comfortable sharing this shit with you because look, you're as weird as me. As I've said before, I'm weird for doing it, you're weirder for listening. But anyway, in relation to fighting, what I've been thinking a lot about ever since I kind of announced in the podcast that I was going to commit to doing it, I've been thinking about nothing but it practically. But how would I go about doing it? There are no shows in Ireland anymore because of COVID, and even previously because of COVID. It's a long story, I won't get into it now, but my understanding is there's no amateur shows or pro shows in Ireland these days, and hasn't been for maybe a couple of years. They're up the north, alright, I think Clan Wars is still operating up the north, another good promotion. But anyway, I digress. What I'm thinking of is, if over the next couple of years, say, I got myself up to, I don't know, 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers, that'd be a way of calling out another social media cunt with 50,000 followers or 100,000 followers and maybe finding another fighter, finding somebody with a similar profile to me, and basically behind the scenes going, here lad, want to fight? Now, you know, within reason, it can't be just some makeup chick with 50,000 followers. You know, the person's going to have to be a competent martial artist in order for this to work in the first place. But there's plenty of them around, and you know, you could get someone from fucking Australia for all I care, it doesn't matter. But the idea being, I get an opponent that has a similar reach to me, and we basically join forces in a way to bolster both our audiences. So not only do we not fight for nothing, but we could maybe create our own show. Maybe it's just a one fight, maybe it's just a one-off thing. Create enough publicity about it online, artificially create a bit of fucking hype about it, you know, maybe get a paper or two talking about it, whatever. Again, it's all very vague and very fuzzy, but this is kind of dream stuff, lads. But this is where dreams fucking start. Dreams start with stupid, crazy fucking ideas that you kind of fill out. But anyway, that's just fighting. okay? And as I said, before I do that, I have to lose 20 pounds of fat. But that brings me into diet, nutrition, water intake, recovery, strength and conditioning, sparring. All that stuff could be fucking recorded and uploaded to YouTube. Off the Lead YouTube channel. There's going to be videos coming very soon. The conversations, I'm going to record them. I sit down and talk for someone for 3 or 4 hours. Why not sit down and talk for someone for 3 or 4 hours, and as well as recording the audio, record the fucking video? Why the fuck not? Like, I mean, it's 2020s, lad. But I can video my diet progression, my nutrition progression, my water intake, all these different things, okay? Figuring out what my resting heart rate is. I'd love to do a video on that as I learn it, because I think the best way to teach something is to learn it publicly, if that makes sense. I want to find out what my max and resting heart rate is. I want to find out what VO2 max is and what mine is. I want to know what my personal bests are in deadlift, chest press, 100 meters, 5k, 10k, marathon, my personal best in everything, and fucking document it. If for no other reason, it's just the incentive to actually go and fucking do it. All of this, lads, is nothing to mention, or not to mention that I have a fucking microgreen business. I have a fucking state-of-the-art controlled growing environment business. It's essentially a microgreens factory. Here's one for you. What about a cannabis factory? I could build a cannabis factory like fucking that. Now, I can't grow cannabis in it yet, but I fucking plan to when the time arises, okay? I grow cannabis hydroponically. Hydro means water, ponics is work, so water works is the direct translation. But hydroponics is basically growing plants without soil, okay? I know that inside and out. There's a thing called aquaponics, which is a perfect marryment of breeding fish and breeding plants. The fish's water needs to be cleaned, it's cleaned by the plants. And look, I'll do a whole episode on aquaponics and hydroponics and aeroponics and all these different things. But again, these are things that I know shit tons about and would make cool videos, I think. A wormery is something that I've been thinking of doing for God knows how many years. Turn kitchen waste into compost. There's a dude, Collie Ennis, I think is his name. He's the Critter Shed podcast. Irish dude. He was on Blind Boy at one stage. So if you just Google Blind Boy Collie Ennis or Blind Boy Critter Shed, you'll get the podcast between the two of them. But to cut a long story short, he's an insect expert. And I remember him talking to Blind Boy about the idea of having a bowl of, I think it was a type of cockroach in your kitchen, but the idea being that you have them in a pot or a bowl that they can't get out of, and you just throw your kitchen scraps to, and they'll turn it into like a fucking super compost. A little bit of an aside on Collie Ennis, I just looked him up before I recorded this to make sure it was the Critter Shed podcast that he had, and he has on his Twitter bio, you know, insect enthusiast, reptile enthusiast, blah 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 blah, and pugilist. Pugilist, pugilist. And I was like, oh, don't tell me that's somebody who really loves that fucking stupid little dog. You know those pug things? I'm not a fan, but anyway, I was like, a pugilist. Oh, I bet you it's a fucking expert in pugs. A pugilist, lads, believe it or not, is a fucking boxer. More specifically, somebody who fights with their fists. A pugilist. Never fucking did I hear such a thing. But anyway, and again, it's just, there's such a perfect example. I never would have learned what the word pugilist was if I hadn't had to look up Collie Ennis for this episode. Okay, so it's just a perfect encapsulation of how this podcast fuels my education. There's a tourism aspect to my business as well, lads. Just giving people tours of the microgreen facility, but also of the cannabis production facility when I build it, and also the wormery if I build it, or the aquaponic setup with the fish and the plants. There's a whole host of ways that I could encourage people to come down and pay to see what I'm up to down there. Not to mention the MMA gym that's fucking currently on the go, well, was post this poxy fucking lockdown. But what about an online MMA course, okay? I am more than qualified to teach the basics in stand-up and the ground game, okay? In stand-ups, think about this, right? What about a 2 or 3 minute video on the following? The jab, the cross, or the straight, same thing. Hook, overhand right, uppercut, inside and outside leg kick, roundhouse kick, teep kick, just wrestling in general. That's stand-up. Ground game, so the guard, open, half and close guard, passing guard, side control, mount, get in the back, north-south, rear naked chokes, arm bars, kimuras, guillotines, triangles, sweeps, foot and leg locks. I can teach the basics of all that kind of stuff. I'm not proficient to teach fighters it, but I'll teach somebody who doesn't fucking know anything about it and do a good job of it, I think. There's a dude, Jeff Chan is his name. He has a YouTube channel called MMA Shredded. He's a professional mixed martial artist, a professional MMA fighter. I think he's signed to the UFC. But get on this, right? He has 250,000 subscribers on YouTube. Okay, he's a bit of a social media sensation. Think about this, right? How do you think that affects his purse? And for those of you that aren't familiar with the term, a purse is what you get paid to fight. It's called a purse. How do you think that affects his purse? The fact that he's got 250,000 people subscribed to his YouTube channel. Like, I would imagine that his negotiations with the UFC are a hell of a lot different than somebody who's, let's say, ranked the same. And when I say ranked the same, I mean, as far as a fighter, they've got the same standing. They've got a similar record, similar background, and all the rest of it. One guy gets paid $5 grand to fight, but if you get paid $5 grand to fight because you're 100th in the world, say, but let's say Jeff Chan is 100th in the world too, he's not getting paid $5 grand to fight. Not with 250,000 followers, he's not. He's going to turn around to the UFC and go, fuck off, I'll go fight somewhere else. I'll go fight somewhere who's more willing to pay for the audience that I've built up over my career. Because it's something that people don't really realise about fighting, and something that McGregor gets a lot of slack for, is, you know, McGregor's trash talking and all this shit that he does, that attracts eyeballs, and eyeballs translate to clicks and pay-per-views and money, essentially. So a big part of fighting, as important as the stand-up, as important as the ground game, is understanding the business of fighting and the promotion of fighting. Because the more appealing you can make yourself, the more people are going to want to watch you. The more people that are going to want to watch you equals more people who are going to be willing to pay to see you compete. Okay, so as I was saying, as big a part of fighting, as well as the ground game and the stand-up game, is the promotional game. And all of the things that I'm just after mentioning, that's just the tip of the fucking iceberg of interest that I have and things that I want to do anyway. But why not record them? Why not document them? For my own fucking... just to catalogue my own life, if nothing else. I mean, to look back on it, it's almost like a fucking diary of sorts. It's already cool. Like, listening to me and Ivor McQuillan's first conversation, every so often I dip in and out of it, just to hear the tone in my voice when he's talking about spirits and the soul and the unconscious, and you can nearly hear me go in the background. I've done a complete 360 on that now. An absolute, total and utter overhaul of psychedelics and drugs generally. That's another thing that I love to do a podcast on. And getting back, before I forget, our ancient history, like, that's something that I've been doing a little, but I want to do a load more of it, okay? I want to do the whole human story thing. I want to do the whole science thing. I want to do geography, fucking physics, astronomy, nutrition, psychology, medicine, spirituality, religion, psychedelics. All this kind of stuff is stuff that I am massively interested in anyway, and the best way for me to learn more about these things and to educate myself on these things is to start producing content about it. I'm in the middle of building a fucking mobile studio this fucking 6 weeks. I have to pull the finger out and finish it, but if I haven't mentioned it before, I mention it now. I've nearly finished. It's basically just a, what's it like? It's like a psych canteen in an office, or a porta potty. You know those toilets that you get at concerts? It's just a room. Now, it's a lot bigger than a fucking porta potty, but it's just a room that you can pick up and move around with you. And the idea of it is, I pick it up with the forklift, I put it into the back of my van, and away I go to either a hotel or outside a venue or down the road from someone's house or whatever. But the idea being that I can bring my recording studio to you with microphones and video and everything that I need to record the conversation with somebody. But the beauty of it is, I don't have to ask somebody to drag themselves from Galway or Cork or Dublin to where I am. I can go to you, lads. I can go to you, and we can do it in your fucking back garden for all I care. But that's another thing. I must actually make a fucking video now as it stands. That's what I'm going to do. The next episode will be a video episode. It'll be on my YouTube channel, so if you've been following this, you may get on to Off the Lead on YouTube. Okay, everyone who has a smartphone has YouTube on it. If you're not using it, believe me, it's there. Okay, If not, go into the Play Store or Apple thing and download YouTube. Go onto YouTube, you'll see a little search thing, type the words in Off the Lead, my page will pop up and there'll be a thing for you to subscribe. Where it says subscribe, just click that and that's all you have to do. You'll have subscribed to my channel. All my previous stuff that Pat has kindly put up and the stuff that I've already put up previously is there already, and all future stuff is going to come up. But this is what, yesterday was 32, this is 33. Episode 34, lads, is going to be a video episode, and it'll be a walk around of the mobile studio that I'm building. And on that note, I'll chat to you tomorrow on YouTube. But before I let you go, I'd just like to remind everybody that this episode and all the episodes on YouTube have been brought to you by past guest and friend of the show, Pat McKeown. Pat is very similar to myself insofar as that he's long had an interest in the mind, and more specifically the brain, and how they both interact, to such an extent that he went and spent 4 years getting a degree in neuroscience and then spent a further year in getting a master's in psychology. Now what he's done is pretty fucking cool. He's after setting up his own YouTube channel. It's called Pat Psychology Masters, and there's a link in the description. Now what he's done here is he's uploaded all the best bits that he's learned over the last 5 years and put them into short, plain English, easy to understand YouTube videos for the likes of myself. His YouTube channel has been a massive resource for me in understanding both my mind and the mind of others. So hit up Pat Psychology Masters YouTube channel, subscribe, give it a like and a comment and a share. All that kind of stuff helps, and I'll chat to you soon.